You know what's funny, y'all? I actually get a kick out of these responses because it takes pleasure to see me watch people unravel and become so far erratic, or if not mentally disturbed, when it comes to certain fighters. Okay, now what really gets to me is that there's people running around saying they're the real boxing fans, but yet they're the ones who act as just as tribal as other people that they despise. Real talk. Just like the guy in Taiwan, for example, he made another video responding to me titled "Waste of 2 years, GGG, really?" Question mark, two, three different question marks. Now, I'll give him a little credit. He wasn't really disrespecting me. He actually, responded to me in a professional manner. I will give him credit for that. So, in return, I'm going to respond to him in a respectful manner too. Okay? So, in that video, he said a lot of things which really pissed him off because it all has something to do with the hangout that I had a couple nights ago. Or was it yesterday? Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday that I had, momentarily by myself, and then I invited Mr. Doc and others on, and when they had the low place in D-style debate. But anyhow, Mr. Doc had mentioned a comment in the chat box saying that Triple G and Lochner Tommy Boy wasted Golovkin's 2 years by fucking around with fishnets, aka Golden Boy Oscar De La Hoya. Well, the guy in Taiwan didn't take that comment kindly. And let me tell you how demented and tribalistic that he is, because when Canelo and the Golovkin fight got called off due to the drug testing controversy with Canelo Alvarez, Low Place made a video saying that the Adonis Stevenson curse has something to do with it, which was a bizarre title. I get it, but this guy, the Taiwan guy, or the Taiwan citizen guy, the educator, quote unquote, was livid about that comment and then blasted Low Place for saying that. This is how twisted he is. When it comes to Golovkin, this guy, in his eyes, Golovkin can't do no wrong. He can walk above water. He's like God. It's just like he can't do it. Cannot do wrong in his eyes. And what's so funny about this is that he's further exposing himself to becoming very tribalistic and very one-sided when it comes to Gennady Golovkin. I mean, it's already been proven 3 years ago, so it's not evident. It all goes back to the hangout show that he had with the Pound for Pound Boxing Report with Mike, and when Beats and Ben were on there at one time. Because it's just like, if you say 1 ounce of constructive criticism about Gennady Golovkin, he goes ballistic. He calls it hate, and to be honest with you, he doesn't know the actual term of hate. So I guess he's confused by the term of hate versus constructive criticism. Now, is it hate when I say that Gennady Golovkin hasn't become an undisputed champion? That's not hate, that's a fact. Is it hate when I say that Gennady Golovkin's only beaten 4 world champions in 39 pro fights? That's not hate, that's a fact. And don't mention Danny Jacobs, because that's not a real title. All right? And we'll get to that later about that WBA title, because you're still trying to give it some credibility, which in most cases some fighters disagree with him on that, and I'll get to that later. All right? Is it hate to say that Golovkin doesn't have any Hall of Fame wins in his career? No, it's fact. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have a pound for pound fighter on his resume. In fact, he doesn't even have a guy, as I mentioned, a pound for pound, a guy who's considered a Hall of Famer. I mean, Canelo Alvarez, that's up in the air. But at the same time, you can't, as he openly admitted in his video, Canelo Alvarez cannot be compared to Felix Trinidad. Trinidad was far greater than Canelo Alvarez, which he openly admitted, which is a very bizarre thing, but yet he's still trying to rip some credit away from Hopkins for beating Trinidad. Okay? Now, let's go to the things he said, man. Before I do that, just admit that you're a tribalistic. You're a tribalistic guy. You're a tribal. Just plain and simple. Okay? It's okay to go out bat out for your guy, but why do you continue to be dishonest about the situation? Seriously, it's like any fighter that he advocates, he goes out and be dishonest and try to stretch out things that are not accurate about their fighters and to go ahead and discredit fighters that came before him. And that's what he does all the time. Okay? Now, is he doing this for clickbait? Perhaps. Is he trolling? Maybe. Well, he is one of the biggest trolls in the YTBC, so perhaps he's doing that. But at the same time, I can say he's dishonest about the situation. But I'm gonna go. I jot down some notes on this, okay? And let's go to the things that he said that are very inaccurate that I want to challenge, because he said he wanted me to respond, so I'm going to respond to him. All right, first things first. You mentioned Jaime Maguire, all right? And you said that, well, it's funny that, I'm paraphrasing what you said. You said that, well, boxing fans all of a sudden now, people all of a sudden now talk about Maguire when they shot him down as a legitimate opponent for Golovkin, and yet they didn't even bother studying this guy, this, that, and the third. And yet they call themselves boxing fans. Well, bruh, what video have you done for Jaime Maguire prior to him being named as a potential replacement for Gennady Golovkin? I looked at your channel. You haven't made one video before he was selected. So don't sit there and put with a straight face and say that you knew everything about Jaime Maguire. You had no knowledge of him. Even the guys who watched the sport far longer than you have, including myself, like Boxing Beats and Ryan's, EJ, and others, we had no idea about who this guy is. He was totally under the radar. He was taking nothing but low-level regional fights in Mexico for so many years in his short five-year career so far. And yet you went out there and propagated this guy as if, yeah, he's undefeated. He's got a great undefeated record. And I find that very laughable, because Deontay Wilder, you've criticized his undefeated record, but yet you say Maguire has a great undefeated record. I mean, you see the double standard here? You see where the dishonesty comes into play? You go out in the bat for one guy's undefeated record, but not the other guy that you despise. Wow, interesting. But let's talk about that WBA regular title, okay? I mean, at the end of the video, well, I'll get to that in a sec. I'll get to that. I'll say that later. I'll mention that again. I'll say that later. But anyhow, let's see here. You know what? Let me get to the WBA, because you keep bringing this up in the video as if that's a legit title. It's the way it is, blah, blah, blah. But it's funny, at the end of that video that you made a response towards me, you didn't play the fact where I said that the other sanctioning bodies don't recognize it, to the fact that they will not allow anyone to unify with the regular champion. Plain and simple. Let's take Badou Jack, for example. When Badou Jack beat Nathan Cleverly for the regular light heavyweight WBA title, his mandatory was Dimitri Bivol, who was the interim champion, right? So when the purse bid was called, Badou Jack drops the title. Yes, it looks like it's a bit of a duck. However, Badou Jack was already in line to fight Adonis Stevenson. And for him to get that fight with Stevenson, he had to drop that title, because there was no way the WBC was going to sanction that fight. They were not going to do it unless that WBA regular title was relinquished, and that's exactly what Jack did. That's an example right there. Same thing with Dorticos versus Gassiev. Dorticos went into that cruiserweight tournament as the regular cruiserweight WBA champion. The actual champion was Denis Ledebev. Since Ledebev was not in that tournament, and for the WBA, for that fight to be sanctioned, the WBA had to make a decision to install Ledebev as a champion in recess and elevate Dorticos as the super champion. That's the only way they can get that fight sanctioned, and for a unification bout in the cruiserweight tournament for the WBSS. Plain and simple. Okay? Now, if you want to believe that's a legitimate title, so be it. That's up to you. But that dispute is going to be there. Regardless, like it or not, man, it's the way it is. Until the sanctioning bodies recognize that title as a legit title and allow unifications to happen with it, then it's not a legit title. It's the way it is, bro. In fact, if you want to treat it as a legit title, then you should explain, why haven't you made any videos about Lou Ben? Do you know who Lou Ben is? The mini flyweight who is getting a quote-unquote world title shot against Carlos Canizales in his second pro fight, right? For the regular WBA mini flyweight title. He's on verge of breaking Lomachenko's record. So, because in that situation, he gets credit for being a legitimate WBA regular champion. So if he wins it, I would like to see you make a video about him breaking Lomachenko's record. I'm just saying. Now let's go down to other things you said here. You asked me about who could he have fought other than Canelo Alvarez. That was bigger. Who could he have fought? Yeah, let me see. Now, before that, before I get to that, you said that Golovkin couldn't fight Andrade and Charlo 2 years ago. I mean, do you recall that Gennady Golovkin did call out the entire 154-pound division? Have you forgotten that? You know, he also called out the 168-pound fighters as well. So he could have fought those guys and during the interim, during this whole Canelo debacle, okay? So he could have, just like, other middleweights like Dick Tiger, Tommy Hearns. Well, Tommy Hearns wasn't a natural middleweight, but Tommy Hearns, when he was campaigning at middleweight, he went up to 175 to get a one-off fight against Dennis Andre for the WBC light heavyweight title. Then came back down, then got up back up to 168, and then challenged Virgil Hill for the 175 title, a fight that some felt that he couldn't win. He was an underdog, and he beat the Virgil Hill, a Hall of Famer, by the way. Okay, so he could have fought, 168-pound guys. He could have fought light heavyweights like Andre Ward, Sergey Kovalev, and Adonis Stevenson. By the way, why do I say this? It's because his trainer Abel Sanchez is the one who called out those three guys and said that, hey, my guy can beat those three. Remember? He's the one that said it. Those are his words. He could have gotten those fights made, and we'll get to Ward in a second, all right? Now, as far as what other fight that can have been bigger, let me get to that. Well, Billy Joe Saunders. That fight could have been made in Kazakhstan. It was about set to go. Billy Joe Saunders signed his end of the contract, as Frank Warren had confirmed that they were ready to take that fight in Kazakhstan for the undisputed middleweight title. What happened in that situation? Golovkin backed out of the negotiations. He decided to go with to fight Canelo instead for the money fight. And as I recall, the reason why I say that he's wasted his last 2 years chasing this guy, which most of your commenters, deranged, sycophants or commenters, agree with me on this, and they disagree with you on. They're the ones who want him to fight Billy Joe Saunders rather than Canelo Alvarez at this point. And I know that is boiling your blood and it's pissing you off because you got your own subscribers that don't agree with you on this. All right. It's not always about money. This is your problem. It's not about money. I know this is a prize fighting business and boxing is a business to some degree, but fighters don't get revered based off how much they made in fights. Yes, that does take into account, but they get remembered or revered by the fights they made and the opponents that they fought and how they fought them and when they fought them. That's how they get revered. It's not always about money, man. It's about chasing legacy. Besides, the Gennady Golovkin did say himself that his whole goal is to become undisputed middleweight champion, something we haven't seen in over a decade. He said that was his goal and that was his intentions. That's what he wanted to do. But he's not doing that, and that does warrant some bit of criticism on his part. Okay? You have to understand. I don't know, man. This is a very simple comprehension, and it just seems like you don't get it. Now, Danny Jacobs was not the #1 middleweight. He was #2 rated behind Gennady Golovkin. So let's get that straight, okay? Now, why is it that you're going after Derevyanchenko and Charlo when people are asking for Golovkin to fight those guys? All right, I don't understand why you're criticizing them, because they have actually fought to become mandatories. Plain and simple. They're in the mandatory position to get a shot at Golovkin, but yet you say they're not really credible compared to Canelo Alvarez at this point because they're not big money fights. Yeah, from a financial perspective, it's not worth the risk, but at the same time, they are legit opponents. And besides, weren't you the guy who justified Dominic Wade as a legitimate mandatory from the IBF? Remember that? Yeah, Dominic Wade didn't even fight in a final title eliminator to even be installed a mandatory. He was just put in that position because Torio Johnson, had an injury pulled out. All right. So, and yet you also say that Derevyanchenko and Charlo never fought a top 10 middleweight to even, to get that shot. I mean, actually, Charlo did. He fought Jorge Sebastian Highland. He was a top 10 middleweight when Charlo fought him, and Charlo blasted him out. I know the injury was an issue, but Charlo did fight a top 10 middleweight to get a ranking. He did. Derevyanchenko, on the other hand, no, he didn't. But let's be fair, though. Wade didn't fight a top 10 middleweight to even become mandatory. And yet you justify Dominic Wade as a legitimate mandatory challenger to Golovkin, for fucking sakes. And I said myself that man had no business being a mandatory. The IBF should have allowed a final title eliminator when Torio Johnson pulled out. It pushed the fight back a little bit. They should have, and I was proven right, wasn't I? Because that was a disastrous fight, and we haven't seen Dominic Wade ever since. But hey, it's not Golovkin's fault. He did what he had to do. He had to fight the guy, or either fight the guy who was going to get stripped. Plain and simple. All right. And why do you keep running on this narrative about Canelo pound for pound, pound for pound? Yeah, he fought him, but he didn't win the fight. He didn't win the fight. Why do you keep treating the draw as if that's a win? It's not a win. Plain and simple. You don't get rewarded from drawing with an opponent, like I said in my prior video. And you saying that what other biggest payday is there other than Canelo Alvarez? I mean, Billy Joe Saunders is a big payday. May not be the astronomical number as Canelo Alvarez, but Billy Joe Saunders is a big payday. Hell, he can go to 168 and fight George Groves for a big payday. I'll explain that later. Okay? Why is you so fixated on paydays? I mean, Bernard Hopkins' biggest payday till this day was against Oscar De La Hoya. Hopkins got $10 million plus the total revenue share for that pay-per-view fight against Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya got $30 million guaranteed. Okay? Of course, he was the A side. But did Hopkins cash out after that fight? No. Could he have? Absolutely he could have, but he didn't do it. He chose to do something that his idol Sugar Ray Robinson never could have done. I mean, never did, I should say. Bernard Hopkins decided to move up after his little setbacks with Jermaine Taylor. He decided to go up to light heavyweight and challenge himself against some bigger, stronger men like Antonio Tarver and Chad Dawson and others. Okay, and he made memorable fights up there. He blew through, he humiliated Antonio Tarver. Yes, a fight that people felt that he couldn't win. Yeah, he humiliated Kevin Pavlik. Yes, I know that was a light heavyweight catchweight fight, but he humiliated Pavlik, who's undefeated. People thought that Pavlik was going to blow through Hopkins, and Pavlik was a naturally bigger man. And he beat Winky Wright, a Hall of Famer up there, and a future Hall of Famer, Roy Jones, a fight that he rematched from his loss at middleweight. That's what Hopkins did. Hopkins went to chase legacy after that. He wanted to build a legacy after middleweight. Now, his light heavyweight run, it is very good. It may not be as dominant as middleweight, but it was a very good run because he was a unified champion there. He was a Millennium champion. He was a 4-time champion at light heavyweight. He beat a Hall of Famer. He beat a future Hall of Famer, Roy Jones, as I mentioned. He beat Pavlik. He beat Tarver. He beat young champions in Tavore's Cloud. So, seriously, and he unified once again with Baby Shumanov, broke his own record as the oldest unified champion in history. His previous record was being the oldest champion in history after he broke George Foreman's record. So that's what Hopkins did. So my point is that it's not about paydays. It's about making yourself being legendary. And that's what Gennady Golovkin said himself. That's what his goal was for a long time, especially at middleweight, but he's not doing that. So why is it hate when people call that out? I don't get it. Better yet, a Sergey Kovalev fight. It's a very good, big fight for Golovkin. I mean, hey, didn't Golovkin knock out Sergey Kovalev in sparring with a body shot? I mean, hell, again, Abel Sanchez did call out Kovalev. He did say his guy can go up there and beat Kovalev at 175. Go up there and do it right now. Kovalev may be a little bit vulnerable, even though he's gained his form back a little bit after the Andre Ward losses, but go up and challenge himself. That's a big fight people would love to see. Is it a pay-per-view fight? I doubt it, but it's definitely a legacy fight for Gennady Golovkin. Go challenge himself against a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter in Sergey Kovalev. Do it right now. It shows how great you are, like how Hopkins did it. All right? Now, you say Charles not a big fight? Well, I mean, from a financial perspective, it's a very low reward, like I said, but it's a very, very dangerous risk. Now, to be fair, though, about the memorable fights, Golovkin has been in a memorable fight with Canelo, but he didn't win that fight, so let's get that twisted. All right, now you also mentioned that Charlo and Derevyanchenko are just opponents. I mean, really? I mean, Golovkin's a champion. As a champion, you fight all comers, whether you're a dangerous opponent, whether you're a dangerous former champion or not. If you're a top-rated fighter, you fight them. That's what Hopkins did at middleweight. He fought all his mandatories. He fought all the top opponents that were there for him to fight when he was an undisputed middleweight champion of the world. A long-reigning champion. That's what he did. So Charlo and Derevyanchenko just opponents. I mean, Charlo was a respected 154-pound champion. Derevyanchenko is a dangerous middleweight. Okay? Now, if a Golovkin had fought and beat those guys, his resume would look a little bit better than it is now. It would. It would. And you said that Derevchenko's team, even though they're trying to get that fight and they're trying to, pull some strings with the IBF to get Golovkin stripped, which the IBF pretty much is going to oblige to do. You say that Derevchenko's team probably wouldn't even take that fight for 250, other than Monterosian because he was on the show for a long time. And you said that history doesn't prove that fighters would do that. Well, that's a lie. You're wrong. Adonis Stevenson took 250 grand when he fought Chad Dawson, when he moved up to light heavyweight. He did. He took 250 grand and knocked out Chad Dawson, and I have to admit, in a spectacular fashion in the first round with that left. And what was Stevenson's reward after that? Stevenson got 7-figure paydays after that fight. Let me see. You also said that Ryalto Mariota is better than Derevchenko and Charlo because he's a regular champion. A regular WBA champion, a title that he can't even unify with the other sanctioned other alphabet champion like Billy Joe Saunders. Hell, he can't even unify with Golovkin, other than it's going to be a consolidation if that fight does get mandated by the WBA. That's all it is, just like what they did with the Jacobs fight. So anyhow, I'll give you this about Mariota. Mariota does have a better resume than Charlo and Derevchenko at middleweight. But overall, Charlo has a better resume than Mariota. I'm going to tell you why. He's got Ishii Smith. He's got, what's his name? Austin Trout. And he's got J. Rock Williams. And we'll get to in a second because you went after J. Rock for some reason. I don't know why you did that, but that was very, very wrong. But we'll talk about that. And yeah, here you are saying that we're shitting on Golovkin for fighting Canelo. Bruh, let's put this in proper context. Canelo's failed 2 drug tests. Well, technically 1, which is the A sample and the B sample. Okay? He's a tainted fighter. And why is Golovkin still chasing this guy? Huh? While Saunders is still calling him out for an undisputed championship fight, a fight that people really want to see at this moment more than fucking Triple G and Canelo. I hate to break it to you, bro, but Triple G and Canelo fight has lost its luster after this drug testing controversy. Even the ardent Golovkin supporters see that now. They don't want to see this fight now. They rather want to see the undisputed championship fight, like I previously mentioned. I know it's hard for you to grasp on that reality, but that's a fact. Now, the fight, if it does get signed on for fall for a rematch, and, if it does garner interest, it can regain its little bit of luster down the line. But at this point, until then, it's lost its luster. Nobody's interested at this point. And I know you're pissed off about it, but the fact is, it is what it is. You have to understand, not everyone's going to be pleased or see your point of view when it comes to Gennady Golovkin. Just like many people don't see my point of view on Deontay Wilder. I accept that because this is an imperfect world when it comes to boxing. Nobody's going to like the fighter that you like. And here you are being a tribalistic individual that you are, attacking people for the last 2.5 weeks who's either criticizing Golovkin in a constructive way over this situation, or especially with the Hawkins situation over his comments. Dude, you're winning. You're not winning. I'm sorry. You're trying to fight a battle that you cannot win. And every time you're coming out with these video responses, you look more desperate, you're becoming more erratic, and you're becoming more and more deranged in your video. I can tell by your body language. You really need to get help, man. I'm not trying to be funny. Seriously. Seriously, this is madness. Now, not saying that Canelo Triple G the rematch would not be a good fight, but as far as the interest is concerned, it's really lost a lot of luster over this Canelo Alvarez situation with the drug test. He is a tainted fighter. It is what it is, bruh. That Billy Joe Saunders fight is the one we really want to see. If you don't allow Billy Joe Saunders to keep calling Golovkin out and call him a pussy, then that's on you. And then you're going to want to say that there's not a definitive champion at 168, so Golovkin has no reason to go up there. If you mean there's no lineal champion, I can understand that, but George Groves is the #1 super middleweight right now. That's a pretty big money fight for him to go fight Groves in the UK. You got Gilberto Ramirez, who's the champion. And by the way, the fight that Top Rank's been trying to set up with Golovkin for a long time. And yet Golovkin's team has been putting it off for some reason. I don't know what's going on there. Well, but we all know why, because he's tied up with the Canelo situation. Probably it's a legality issue. David Benavidez. Again, I mentioned Groves, potentially a big money fight in the UK. And you got James DeGale. a decent money fight in the UK. But James DeGale is shot and pretty much a shot fighter at this point. I do favor Golovkin to win that fight. If he does take the fight with James DeGale, so be it. I'll give him credit for that. All right. And then you want to say that you're disappointed that Charlo Andrade didn't unify 154, but yet you're not disappointed that Golovkin is not unifying with Saunders? Really? I mean, yeah, you see the double standard? You see the dishonesty there again? You said that Charlo was not interested in the Golovkin fight? I mean, where did he say that? I mean, I never seen an interview with where Charlo had said he wasn't interested in a GG fight. I mean, as I recall, Charlo called out GGG after he knocked out Hugo Centennial Jr. Called him out in the post-fight ring interview. Just, called his name out. That's what Charlo did. Now, if you're talking about an interview where he was reluctant to fight an individual, you're talking about Danny Jacobs. That's the fight that Charlo was kind of reluctant about, not Triple G. So I don't know where you got that from. I mean, that's a lie you made. That's something you made up, bruh. Now, you say what pay-per-view fight did Triple G can make other than Canelo? I mean, as far as the UK is concerned, it's Saunders and Groves. Hell, Chris Eubank Jr. That's a pay-per-view fight in the UK. Now, will it make as much as Canelo and the Canelo fight in the US? Of course not. It won't. It won't. I know that. It won't make as much. But it is a pay-per-view fight that those could be made in the UK. Saunders, Groves, and Eubank with his deal with ITV. Plain and simple. Now, has Groves been on the pay-per-view? Yeah, I think that was a pay-per-view fight. He was on the WBSS with Eubank. Yeah, so that was a pay-per-view fight. Okay. Now, you say that the reason why the Golovkin can't fight Saunders is because he has all the belts and Canelo has a ring and lineal title. No, that's incorrect. He doesn't have all the belts. Canelo has the ring and lineal title and Saunders has the WBO title. So get your facts straight. And you're getting mad when I said that Golovkin's team is trying to cash out on him? You get upset that I said that? Really? You say, well, all right, let me let you play that. Okay? I'll let you respond. I'll go right here.
And we just saw what he did against Martirosyan, destroyed him. This is a guy who Lara fought twice, couldn't destroy him.
Well, yeah, speaking of the Martirosyan fight, I mean, Golovkin did look a lot slower than normal. I guess that's due to inactivity. And he got hit in the first round a lot against Martirosyan, a round that many people gave to Martirosyan. Martirosyan won that round. Martirosyan hit him with some uppercuts and some jabs.
Charlo fought once, couldn't destroy him. Andrade fought, couldn't destroy him.
Yeah, of course. The difference is that Martirosyan was on a 2-year layoff going into this fight, and he was coming off a loss against Arizona Lara. Major difference, bruh. If Martirosyan was as active as he was when he fought Charlo and when he fought Andrade, then he would have been a much different fighter. Plain and simple. As we continue, let's listen to the horse's mouth. The horse's mouth.
Many elite fighters have fought him and haven't been able to destroy him. I understand the circumstances are different.
Yeah, let me see. What elite fighters are you talking about? Kell Brook, Danny Jacobs? I mean, are you calling David Lemieux and Kasi Uma and Naruhito Ishida and Curtis Stevens, Willie Monroe? You call them elite fighters? Seriously? Oh, man, you need to get your head out of Golovkin's ass, man. Really, seriously. Elite fighters? Are you kidding me? Monroe, whose best win on his record is against fucking Brian Vera? Are you kidding me? The same Monroe who lost to fucking Darnell Boone prior to that, got knocked out against Golovkin, then shelled up against Billy Joe Saunders. Please, bruh. Please. Ishida, who knocked out punch-drunk James Kirkland? Okay, whatever. Gabe Rosado. Man, let's continue.
But the point is, he is a veteran elite fighter.
Yeah, it's funny though, because Golovkin was getting banged up against those guys. Especially guys who are so subpar, they shouldn't be hitting him like that. Of course, it all goes to his natural ability. He doesn't have good reflexes. He's very slow. He has no head movement. Plain and simple. He doesn't.
Nobody expected him to get blown out and destroyed the way he did in that fashion. even if you thought it was a waste of time fight.
Yeah.
But still, what fights were better than Canelo?
Yeah, Billy Joe Saunders.
That's what I'm asking for.
Billy Joe Saunders.
These people say this.
And George Groves. He can go up to 168, fight George Groves. He can fight James DeGale. He can fight Benavidez, Ramirez, and Kovalev at 175 and Stevenson at 175. Hell, even Badu Jack. He can take those fights. As his trainer says, he can knock out light heavyweights. He can take on light heavyweights. He can take on super middleweights. He can take on 154-pound guys. That's what he said.
But I don't see the fight that makes more sense.
Why not George Groves? Why not Billy Saunders?
Billy Joe Saunders is not a bigger fight.
It is a big fight. It's not a bigger fight, but it's a big fight.
Nobody ranks Billy Joe Saunders higher than Canelo.
But better yet, at this point, it is a bigger fight than the Canelo fight because that's an undisputed fight. That's for the undisputed championship. That's a legacy fight compared to fighting Canelo. Yes, Canelo's got the ring and lineal title, but he's a tainted fighter right now. That's a major difference, bro. And that's something you cannot grasp on. That reality, once again, I have to mention so that way I can drill it through your head.
They never have, and potentially they never will. So just because he has a title doesn't mean it's a bigger fight.
It is.
It's a significant fight, but it's not a bigger fight.
Really? Because it's for the financial reasons, it's not a bigger fight. See, again, you have to distinguish the difference between bigger fight versus the financial aspect of it. Now, if you mean by a bigger fight, yeah, from a financial aspect, it is. Now, from a legacy standpoint, as I got to repeat myself, the Billy Joe Saunders is.
That was the time to do it, and this is what happened. These are the consequences. When you try to cash out with a fighter, these are the things you're going to have to go through. You're going to have to go through a guy failing drug test because you're waiting to fight the biggest guy in your division, a pound-for-pound fucking fighter, and the only pay-per-view superstar in North American boxing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Now, here's the problem is that Golovkin has allowed Tom Loeffler particularly has allowed Golden Boy to dictate his career for the last 2 years. That's something you don't understand. Okay? When they were trying to make that deal, Billy Joe Saunders, Golden Boy intervened and told them after the Jacobs fight, say, hey, look, here's the deal. You're negotiating with us right now. Now, if you think you're going to go over there and fight in Kazakhstan and fight Billy Joe Saunders for the undisputed title, you can kiss your payday goodbye. And that's exactly what happened. So they got into that agreement where Canelo, the A side, is the only one who gets the rematch clause and he gets to dictate it how it goes. And since Golovkin is trapped, he can't fight no one else unless Golden Boy says so. That's how it is at this point. And yet people see that and you can't. All you see is the dollar signs. You pretty much act as if you're the manager or the promoter of the fighter. Are you getting something out of this deal that you're not telling us? I mean, you pretty much acting like you're a promoter of this guy. Dude, I'm sorry, money or not, but he has wasted the last 2 years chasing Canelo. Plain and simple. Now, I understand it's not his fault that Canelo was the one who failed the drug test, but he's the one who got locked himself in a situation that he can't get out of. And I'm sure he's tired of the situation where he wants to get out of this. I'm sure he's thinking right now, the hell with Canelo. I want to continue my career fighting other people, but he can't. He can't because there's a legality issue that if he thinks he's going to get out of this rematch clause that he's tied into, he's going to definitely be in court with Golden Boy, and they're going to sue his ass for millions and millions of dollars. Plain and simple. And that's why people are upset at why his career is being wasted at this point. He's being more inactive. He's slowing down. He's not getting younger. He's becoming more vulnerable as other guys are kind of seeing him as food at middleweight. I'm sorry, bro. That's the way it is.
Now, this is something that Golovkin and his team had to expect, that Canelo was going to fail a drug test.
No one expected he did. Again, it goes back to my point, is that they're still locked into that rematch clause that you neglect to mention.
Plenty of pay-per-view fights, and has never fucking had any drug issues prior to that.
Yeah, he hasn't.
How is this something that they should have expected?
No one said he should have expected it. Who said that I expected they should? What are you talking about?
It's like, you can't take certain fights unless you want the payday. If you don't want the payday, then go fight somebody else who's far more dangerous for less pay. So, who's far more dangerous?
Charlo. Derevchenko. Saunders.
Then Canelo. Are you going to say, well, Charlo
Yep.
Charlo's a guy whose best win. What's his best win? Let's compare his best win, which you'd have to say is probably Austin Trout.
Yeah.
Right? Don't say Julian Williams, because Julian Williams has never been a world champion, has never beat fucking a future all-time great.
Yeah, that's fine. He hasn't. Neither has Ishida. Neither has Curtis Stevens. Neither has Dave Lemieux. Yeah, Dave Lemieux is a world champion, but he never had a successful title defense. Neither is Willie Monroe. Neither is Matthew Macklin. Neither is Adama. Seriously, J-Rock beat Ishii Smith. And guess who beat Ishii Smith? Danny Jacobs. That's one of Danny Jacobs' best wins. It's Ishii Smith, for God's sakes. So how the fuck you gonna shit on J-Rock for not being a credible opponent for Charlo? J-Rock at least was a top-rated light middleweight when he fought him. Okay. So if you're gonna shit on J-Rock, then you gotta shit on Jacobs, because J-Rock beat the same guy that Jacobs beat, and that's Ishii Smith. The same guy. And J-Rock is better than fucking Monroe. He's better than Ishida. He's better than Macklin. He's better than I didn't mention Monroe. He's better than Rosado. That's a fact. So if you're gonna discredit Charlo for fighting him because he wasn't a champion, then we gotta discredit Golovkin for fighting Rosado, for fighting Macklin, for fighting Ishida, for fighting Monroe. They were never champions. And for fighting Rubio. They were never champions. So stay consistent. And now those guys that I mentioned. Yeah, Monroe, Rosado, Macklin, and Rubio. They never did shit in middleweight. Stevens, they never did shit. So, again, be consistent. If you're going to rip career away from Charlo for beating Williams, then you got to do the same thing for Glut from beating those guys that I mentioned.
Who was exposed against Charlo. So, that's what it was. And since he's come back, it's not as if he's looked fucking superhuman either. That's why people aren't pushing him more now, right? Why basically they're talking about Hurd and Julian Williams' name is secondary behind Hurd and Charlo and even Lara right now.
Yeah, speaking of Lara, why didn't you make a post-fight video on Lara and Hurd if you claim to be a real boxing fan? I know you despise Lara and you say he's one of the most boring fighters you've ever seen. Yeah, we all agree that he's not an exciting fighter, but if you do, as I've always said before, if you put him in there against the right opponent that's going to push him to the limit, Lara's going to give you an exciting fight, and that's what happened. He gave an exciting fight, an exciting performance, and a courageous performance against Jarrett Hurd. And you never made a post-fight video on that. Why? Why didn't you make an announced video on that? Is it because you have your disdain for Lara? Because that fight actually is a candidate for being fight of the year, and more likely is the front runner at this point. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
So his best win is against Trout. He struggled with Trout.
So did Canelo. Yeah, Canelo knocked down Trout, but in the first half of the fight he struggled, and then towards the end when Trout regained his senses, he boxed pretty well, and that fight was controversial. Some felt that Trout won that fight. Yeah, I gave it to Canelo, but it was closer than what the judges seeded. They scored it wide margins. And Canelo himself has been involved in controversial fights and decisions, okay? Let's give you the Floyd Mayweather fight, for example. Yeah, he clearly lost that fight, but one judge, C.J. Ross, scored it a fucking draw. Are you kidding me? You couldn't even give Canelo no more than maybe 2 or 3 rounds if you want to stretch it for that fight against Mayweather. Miguel Cotto, no way in hell he won it by that wide margin. No way in hell. Close fight, but I thought he lost that fight. Erislandy Lar, I thought he lost that fight too. But they scored it that wide. One of the judges scored it that wide for Canelo, 118-110. Are you fucking kidding me? He's been in controversial fights himself when the scorecards has been wildly in his favor in close fights. So he struggled in that fight against Austin Trout as well. So don't fucking be one-sided here, bruh.
Canelo had struggles with Trout, but I felt he beat Trout far more easily.
Far more easily? Are you serious? Did you really watch the fucking fight? Far more easily? Hey, I'll admit that Canelo beat him a little bit better, but not far easily than Charlo did Trout. Than Charlo did. Get out of here, bruh.
Far more impressively than Charlo did.
No, he didn't.
Are you going to say that Charlo is a more dangerous fighter than Canelo?
He is.
Canelo, who's
Have you seen what Charles been doing? He's been blasting through J. Rock Williams. He blasted through K9. You never mentioned that opponent for some reason. K9 Bundridge. He blasted him through what, 3 rounds, 4 rounds? And, then blasted through, then Hugo Centennial Jr. the last fight. So what are you talking about, bruh? Charles been knocking everybody out. His last 3 fights ended in knockout. Wow.
He beat Charlo far more easily and far more aggressively than Charlo did.
No.
So how exactly are you going to say that Charlo is a more dangerous fighter than Canelo?
He is.
Canelo, who's a two-weight champion, a lineal champion currently, a guy who's
Okay, just because Canelo's far more accomplished doesn't mean he's more dangerous than Jamel Charlo. Dude, what the fuck are you talking about? I mean, seriously.
pay-per-view superstar, has a way better resume than anybody currently at 154, 160,
Mm-hmm.
168.
I agree.
His resume is better than anybody in those 3 potential divisions. So there's nobody who has a better resume that Golovkin could fight. There's nobody that has a bigger fan base that Golovkin could fight.
Right.
Nobody is a pay-per-view superstar in these 3 divisions that Golovkin could.
Yeah, as I mentioned, Groves, potentially, Eubank, of course, with ITV, and James DeGale, potentially. I don't know about DeGale, but as far as the pay-per-view fights, again, who cares about that? It's not always about money, it's about legacy. All right? As I mentioned Bernard Hopkins earlier before, after his De La Hoya fight, did Hopkins cash out from there? No. He continued his career. His biggest payday at that time was only $10 million until his day was $10 million. That's it. He continued his career. It still earned less than that in his bouts after that fight. Okay, it's not always about money, man. It's about legacy, about building your career. So if you want to give Golovkin, not credence. If you want to give Golovkin stature for taking on a big money fight, and you call that a great career for doing that, then I don't know what to say to you, man. That's bizarre.
There's nobody in these 3 divisions who's a pound-for-pound top 10 fighter that Golovkin could fight.
Well, there is Sergey Kovalev at 175. Again, if he knocked out Kovalev in sparring, then he definitely gonna go up and beat him in a pro fight. Kovalev is a pound-for-pound top 10 fighter. Go fight Kovalev. Legacy fight.
So I don't see exactly how Loeffler and K2 are wasting Golovkin's time.
They are.
If you want to talk about fights prior to 2 years ago, when they were fighting guys like fucking the Japanese guy.
Ishida, can't even remember his name. Really? Really? I mean, fair enough at middleweight. I understand that. But let's get into the fact that they did call out 154, 160, 168, and 175. Then they scaled it to 154 to 168. And guess what happened? A whole heap of fighters responded to that challenge, particularly Andre Ward and particularly Arizona Lara. And what did they do in that situation? They moved the goalposts, and they wanted to take on fighters at the end of their careers like Carl Froch, Miguel Kessler, Sergio Martinez, which you mentioned in the video, and later in this video, and who else? And they wanted to drag up Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao up to light middleweight. So that's what they were trying to do, plain and simple. Okay, and then when Andre Ward responded to the challenge, what did they do? They demanded Ward to do a catchweight fight, which was a pussy move on their part to do that, okay? That's a pussy ass move by Golovkin and his team to try to do that. First of all, you don't call out other weight classes and then ask for a catchweight when one of those the top fighter responds to that challenge. Pound for pound number 2, Andre Ward at the time. You don't do that. So yeah, if you're complaining that nobody wanted to fight him, then there was fights that could have been made up there. He could have taken some one-off fights, but he chose not to do it. He wanted to move the goalposts, and it backfired on him royally. And that warranted criticism on their part, plain and simple.
Kind of like most people wouldn't have risked Saddam Ali against Jaime Munguia if they had any
Yeah, so don't pretend your fighter didn't duck fights. He did. Yeah, exactly. Like Golovkin wasn't going to fight Andre Ward unless Andre Ward agreed to the catch weight. He wouldn't fight Carl Froch when Carl Froch said, "Hey, look, I'll come out of retirement if you come to light heavyweight because I can't make 168 no more." That's on record. That's on tape. Loeffler said now 172, 175 would be too much for Gennady. Yeah. So he ducked out of fights himself, and Loeffler said himself that I'm not interested in making a Lara fight. Plain and simple. So let's not pretend that he didn't duck fights.
It's just the way it is, man. And I just feel that Colombia's career is pretty much. So, I mean, look, he's had a good career. Don't get me wrong, but it could have been a lot more than what it is.
Exactly.
Isn't it funny though that I showed and boxing librarians showed that Golovkin's career is pretty much on a similar path as Bernard Hopkins.
Really? We're on that again?
Until later on in their career, when they had big fights, right? And that's the reality. Bernard Hopkins fought Tito Trinidad when he was like 36.
Exactly. And beat him. Destroyed Trinidad. Beat him systematically in that fight. A fight that no one thought he could win. In fact, a tournament that Don King assembled for the middleweights, a tournament that Hopkins wasn't supposed to win. It was designed for Trinidad to win it, and after Trinidad was going to collect all the belts at middleweight, he was going to move up to challenge Roy Jones Jr. for the light heavyweight title. That was the plan, and Hopkins derailed that plan. Plain and simple. So when has Hopkins has been on several fights when he was an underdog, and he's accomplished those. He's he's overcame most of those fights. When's Golovkin ever done that? I'm just saying. When's he ever been an underdog in any fight that he's been in?
Golovkin was scheduled to fight Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, but he didn't win the fight. Again, how many times do we have to go through this? A draw is not a win. It's elementary kid stuff. It's simple understanding. Comprende? Capiche?
At 36, I'm not going to say Canelo Alvarez is Tito Trinidad.
Exactly, he's not.
Opponents and the two best opponents on their resumes.
But he didn't win the fight, man. It's simple logic. Jesus Christ.
You could say Roy Jones was the best opponent, but he lost to Roy Jones. So, let's push that aside for now. I mean, losing to opponents doesn't necessarily build your resume.
And neither is a draw.
Or Gabe Rosado would be fucking pound for pound top 10. Then he fought De La Hoya.
Yep.
40.
Yep.
So that means in the next 4 years, Golovkin has the opportunity to do.
Well, actually, no. He fought De La Hoya at the age of 39, not 40. Get it right.
At least one more pound for pound fighter on his resume to be basically in the same position. Oh, sorry, maybe it was a little earlier. I think he fought Jermaine Taylor at 40 and lost.
Well, actually, you're incorrect. He fought Simon Brown, Glenn Johnson, who were either former pound for pound fighters or later became pound for pound fighters. So technically, he needs 2 more to go at middleweight, not 1 more.
Title run at 40 years old. So Golovkin has, more time involved, more time in front of him, and he has big opponents. That's the thing. The fact that these guys are all now talking about Derevchenko,
Yep.
Andrade, Charlo, a rematch with Jacobs, a Billy Joe Saunders, a Canelo Alvarez, a Murata. Now, in the next 2 years, we know there's a lot of great fights in front of Golovkin.
Yeah, is he going to take him?
Mandated fights. One of them is a unification fight.
Yeah, he's about to be stripped by the IBF if he doesn't fight Derevchenko until for August. He hasn't committed to that, so you can scrap that plan from the looks of it. So how do we know Golovkin's got 2 years left? Because his talk took him far more damage at his age than Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins barely got hit in his career other than the Sergey Kovalev fight when he's 49 years old and the Joe Smith fight when he's 50, 51. So you can't really compare the two. The reason why Hopkins' career was more of a longevity, again, because he had a style where it was very tricky, it was very difficult to time, very difficult to read, and he didn't get hit. As Golovkin, on the other hand, is robotic. He's stiff. Sometimes, he's very slow, flat-footed. have no reflexes whatsoever, is a punching bag. I'm sorry.
Ahead of him, and he may not win all those fights. We will see. But the point is, in the next 2 years, there's tons of opportunity for him to do significant things on his resume.
Exactly. So now you're admitting that Golovkin doesn't have a better resume than Hopkins at this point. Man, you seem to be going back and forth with this. Very similar to how you went back and forth with your thoughts about the Andre Ward Sergey Kovalev first fight. At first, you said that Ward got blown away, Kovalev got robbed. Then you admitted that was a close fight. Kovalev won. It could have gone either way. And then Precise Presenter blasted you for that rational stance that you took at that time. And then you changed your mind and went back to your first stance. So, dude, make up your mind. Seriously.
Fighting far better opposition than he could have fought really as a group over the last 2 years.
Play me
He's
again.
wasted his last 2 years because of it. He's wasted his last 2 years. In his last 2 years, he's fought Kell Brook, an undefeated champion.
Yeah, welterweight. And by the way, Hopkins beat Simon Brown, Oscar De La Hoya is far better than Golovkin beating Kell Brook. Sorry, bruh. That's a fact.
Jacobs, a champion, and a guy.
No, he wasn't a champion. He was a regular champion. How many times we got to go through this? In fact, Machado, who beat Jesús Corrales for the WBA super featherweight title, by the way, Machado was recently demoted from being super champion to regular champion because Gervonta Davis won the vacant WBA regular title, and then he was elevated after he beat Jesus Cuellar, which was a bitch move by the WBA, I have to say. And Machado came out and says, "No, I'm not a second tier champion. I'm the real WBA champion." So ask Machado if you think that WBA is a legit title. It's not a legit title. Neither does Keith Thurman believes it's a legit title because when he was elevated to WBA regular champion, he wanted to get Floyd Mayweather. Of course, that was a money fight. He was eager to get that fight, but he wanted to fight the actual champion, Floyd. And since Floyd retired and vacated his belt, and Thurman was elevated to super champion, and Thurman was not happy about that because he actually wanted to win that title in the ring.
Only lost once and was on a roll and considered the best middleweight behind Golovkin.
Yeah, number 2, not number 1.
Canelo Alvarez, a lineal middleweight champion.
He didn't win that fight.
Superstar. Yet he's wasted his last 2 years.
Yeah.
I would like you to show me who in boxing has fought better opposition in the last 2 years than that.
Oh, simple. Sarandasai, Sarisa. Have you forgot about him? He beat Roman Gonzalez, who was universally recognized pound for pound number 1 fighter in the world. He beat him in a decision in the first fight, knocked him out in the second fight, and beat a very good and more likely going to be a great small flyweight and super flyweight in Juan Francisco Estrada in back-to-back fights. Those wins are far better than any of the last 2 wins that the wins that Golovkin had in the last 2 years. Oh yeah, your guy, Vasily Lomachenko. Last 2 years, he's beat Nicholas Walters. He's beaten Guillermo Regendow. He's beaten Jorge Linares recently. Lomachenko has a way better resume at this point, and I have to say he does have a better resume than Gennady Golovkin. Lomachenko has won 3 titles in the ring. Golovkin has only won 1. Lomachenko is a ring champion. The number 1 lightweight in the world now. Golovkin, nope, hasn't won the ring title because Canelo Alvarez got it. And why hasn't won a lineal title either? So, yeah, those 2 guys have better wins in the last 2 years than Gennady Golovkin. And I forgot to mention Keith Thurman. Yeah, Keith Thurman hasn't been active. He beat Sean Porter and Danny Garcia. You can argue that Kell Brook beat Sean Porter. Fair enough. But that's still a better win. That's still a very good win. And Danny Garcia is far better than any of the wins that Golovkin has on his resume. And stop saying Canelo Alvarez. He didn't win the fight. It was a fucking draw. Plain and simple. Alright? That answers your question.
And then to have a Canelo other fight set up. That was 4 huge fights that were set up. Yes, the 4th one fell through, and they fought Martyr Rosen, which is just a stay busy fight. But that was never the plan. That was never the setup. That was never the way things were supposed to be going.
Oh, by the way, yeah. So Lomachenko has done something that Golovkin hasn't done, as I've just mentioned, so I can repeat myself so you can understand. He beat a pound for pound fighter, outclassed him, and made him quit, which is surprising to me. And he beat the number one lightweight, Jose Linares, and captured the Ring Magazine title. So he's collected 4 belts in total. And Golovkin only has 1 and had 3 awarded to him. And Lomachenko's only had 12 pro fights.
You know, the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the last 2 years has fought better opposition. Diaz just got beat.
No, I don't have Crawford number 1 pound for pound right now. I actually have Lomachenko number 1. What are you talking about? If you listen to my prior video, I put Lomachenko number 1 until Crawford gets busy again and start cleaning out some the welterweights like Thurman, Spence, Porter, and those guys, and collect all the belts at 147. Then I'll put him up back into number 1. Yeah, Lisa Dongo is more accomplished than Jacobs. Lisa Dongo actually won legitimate titles in the ring. He actually won the legitimate WBA title. He was a legitimate champion. He beat Burns, and when he was an underdog, went to his backyard and beat him far better than Crawford did. And of course, and he knocked out Troyanovsky in 1 round in 30 seconds, 40 seconds to capture his belt. So at least Adongo was able to do that. At least he accomplished what Jacobs couldn't do in the ring. He accomplished what Rosado couldn't do in the ring. He accomplished what Macklin couldn't do in the ring. What Brooke couldn't do in the ring. Brooke, yeah, he won a title, but he couldn't unify with anyone. So, yeah. Yoshida, Monroe. Who else? Rubio, Lemieux. Gamboa. I'm
not sure.
Gamboa.
But are those better names than the names that Golovkin just fought?
Gamboa? Why don't you mention Guillermo Boy's Gamboa? Gamboa was a pound for pound fighter, and he was a unified champion. Was he not? So, and he was an Olympic gold medalist, undefeated when Crawford fought him. Why don't you mention Gamboa? At least that Gamboa win is better, in my opinion, better than any of the Golovkin's wins at this point. At least that win is a pound for pound win on Crawford's resume. Golovkin doesn't even have it yet.
Of course they're not. Come on, it's not even close.
Yeah.
But the point is, Golovkin has wasted 2 years. This is the thing I'm harping on, because when people make these kind of narratives, and not just Dan says it, lots of people say this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I'm just like, what better options were there for him?
Yeah, as I mentioned. Go back in my video. I'm not going to say it again. He's got plenty of options other than Canelo.
Bigger options were there. There weren't any.
They are. There's Ward. There was Ward. Let's not forget about that. There was Froch at catchweight 170, 175, 172.
And now, with this, the controversy around his world title run, there's no controversy.
It is.
Some people who don't want to give him any praise, so then they want to create controversy.
It's controversy, because there's even articles by certain writers who wrote about that title run. Yeah, people are wondering then, is it fair to reward a guy who won an interim title and then get elevated to regular champion, didn't fight the actual champion, Felix Sturm or Daniel Gill at the time, and then he gets elevated to that position where you look at Hawkins' resume, Hawkins never fought in an era where there was interim titles. How can you say that's greater than Hawkins actually won a title in the ring? How can you say that? And here you go again, you're mentioning, I'll let you mention it.
Yeah, he's giving him the record tied or over Bernard Hopkins.
It's tied.
People who, of course, are anti-Golovkin.
Asterisk, with an asterisk, tied.
They look for every reason to discredit him, so they're now trying to discredit these victories. And whether you take it away or not, doesn't matter. Golovkin still made fucking 19 defenses of a world title.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what you want to believe. So what? But no matter what you say about Bernard Hopkins, he did something that Golovkin never did. Far better at middleweight. And I'm going to go through it right now. He did become the undisputed champion, something Golovkin's never done. He's won 6 titles in the ring. Golovkin's only won 1. He's defeated 9 world champions. Golovkin's only defeated 4. He defeated 2 Hall of Fame fighters. Golovkin's defeated none. He's beat 4 pound-for-pound fighters, which is Trinidad, De La Hoya, Brown, and Johnson. Okay? Golovkin hasn't defeated none. Again, the draw is not a win, so get that right. At least he was universally recognized pound-for-pound number 1 after he beat De La Hoya in 2004. Golovkin is rated pound for pound #1 at this point, but only by Ring Magazine. Notable wins. So, I mean, is that hate or that's fact? That's fact. That's not hate. That's a fact. And Hopkins' opponent's win-loss record is far better than Golovkin's opponent's win-loss record. That's a fact. What does that tell you? It tells you that his opposition is much better, Hopkins that is, than Golovkin. I don't know why I'm sounding like a broken record, but some people just don't get it. Only people who doesn't believe that are the diehard Golovkin fans like this guy in Taiwan. They just don't like to see the truth because it doesn't suit their narrative. Plain and simple.
Whether it's a regular world title or not, he still made 19 defenses.
Yeah, again, I mentioned Lu Ben earlier in this video. I know this is a very long video, but I have to get through every single point because I have to address it. But the fact is that Lu Ben, who's a mini flyweight, is getting his second world title, quote unquote, shot against Carlos Casanales. And I want you to make a video on that if he wins, because that fight's coming up in July. So if he wins, he is the regular WBA champion. So by your standards, he's breaking Lomachenko's record. So I want you to make a video on Lu Ben.
Which is better than what Bernard Hopkins did.
See, here you go again. You went from admitting that Hopkins' run is better, and now you're going back to saying, oh, it's better than Bernard Hopkins. What? Dude. I mean, this is elementary stuff. I can't understand how a guy being awarded a title in the ring is better than a guy who actually fought for his belts and defended it against all the mandatories. All comers. Didn't duck and dive nobody. Duck and jive, I should say, nobody at middleweight. He didn't do that. Golovkin, on the other hand, has. That's Billy Joe Saunders at this point. He's avoiding that fight, and he's avoiding his mandatories in Charlo and Derevchenko.
Before winning that regular world title that he won, he wasn't fucking fighting or winning or holding any titles that were world champions.
Yeah, he was. The IBF title. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Serious.
What it is, you know, people are going to look for reasons to discredit people. We've seen them do that.
That's what you're doing with Hopkins. That's what you did with Hagler. In fact, I'm about to do a video on the top middleweights. Top 10 middleweights. And let's see if Golovkin makes that list.
Fucking Manny Pacquiao. Now we're seeing them do that with fucking Lomachenko. I mean, people always look for ways to discredit.
What are you talking about? People are giving Lomachenko full credit now. What are you talking about, bro? Are you blind? Are you? I mean, seriously, a lot of people are giving Lomachenko credit for what he's doing right now. Yeah, there's going to be a few, say, bad apples who want to discredit the guy, but he's getting a lot of props by a majority for what he did to Linares. And before that, when he did to Rigondeaux. So what are you talking about, bro?
I mean, whether you want to fucking take this or not, it doesn't matter. The point is, he's fucking done great things since moving to HBO.
Yeah.
Could he have done more?
Yep.
Sure he could have.
Yep, now you see my point. Now you agree with me that he could have done more. Oh, boy.
A lot of it was out of his hands. It wasn't his fault that Cotto, Sergio Martinez, Felix Sturm.
Oh, let's talk about Cotto. You want to talk about Cotto ducking him? Well, why was Golovkin taking so much step-aside money from Cotto? If he really wanted the Cotto fight, he should not have been taking the 2 or 3 step-aside deals he was getting. He should have forced the fight and said, you know what, Miguel? No more step-aside deals. I need my shot right now. Then he could have called Cotto's bluff, but he didn't do it. So I can't really say you can't really say that Cotto ducked him when Cotto was the one paying him step-aside deals, and yet he was the one that was accepting the money. Martinez, yeah, he was at the end of his career. Plain and simple. But again, it's also fair to say that Golovkin himself has ducked Lar, he's ducked Ward, and he's ducked Froch for a catchweight at light heavyweight. He has. Yep.
That fucking Chris Eubanks ducked him.
Yep.
You know, that fucking parole hurt his back and his career was finished. There's 7 world level fighters.
Yeah, you minus the one Cotto, which he did not, he continued to take step-aside money from.
Actually, Golovkin could have fought. And maybe he would have lost some of those fights. But the point is, we never got the chance because people ducked him.
Well, guess what, bro? Being ducked doesn't make you great. However, it does take into account Golovkin could have done what Charlie Burley and the Black Murderers Row members did, like Ezra Charles, who I like to consider a Black Murderers Row because he was heavily avoided too. Those guys didn't sit and complain about being avoided in their weight class. What did they do? They had to feed their families, so they had to take chances and take high risks. They went up as far as fucking heavyweight and took fights. And that's how they built great careers. Yes, Ezra Charles and Charlie Burley didn't win the title at middleweight, but I tell you one thing, they have far better middleweight wins at middleweight than fucking Gennady Golovkin. Far better wins and Hall of Fame wins at that weight class. Ezra Charles has great wins at middleweight, definitely a lot of great wins at light heavyweight, and definitely a lot of great wins at heavyweight. Ezra Charles has one of the best resumes in modern boxing today, and nobody really talks about him because he's so underrated. Charlie Burley has a very good resume himself as well. Okay? So they didn't complain about being ducked. They were ducked as well, but they moved up and they took on challenges as far as heavyweights. They did it, but more so Ezra Charles did, though. But the fact is, Gennady Golovkin could take a page out of their book and do what they did. Of course not. But again, he still controls his career. He could have went up and challenged fights at 168 or 175, but he didn't do it.
As he could, based on what he had to work with. And it's very similar to what Bernard Hopkins did on his title run. So if you're gonna
Really? What? Hopkins fought everybody he could fight. I mean, I don't recall Bernard Hopkins calling out different weight classes while he was avoided at middleweight. At one point, did he do that? I mean, I don't recall him doing that, but I know after the Jermaine Taylor fight, he went up to 175 and took on bigger challenges. He did that.
always going to be subject to dispute to some degree. You know, given his world title run, it's the way it is, you know? Especially with that regular world title, which he never won in the ring, by the way. He was, you know, he won. See, and why is it an issue when Golovkin didn't win it in the ring?
It's not much of an issue.
Promoted to that position after winning the interim, right? But he did beat a guy in the ring when he was pushed up to that position.
No. You got that wrong. You misinterpreted it. First of all, he didn't beat the actual champion to get that title. And he never won the actual title in the ring. Do you get it? It's very simple to understand. Let's continue.
That hasn't won the fucking title in the ring.
He didn't.
Beat like a real champion to win the title.
He hasn't.
Go look at Wilder, AJ. You know,
What?
plethora of fighters. Bernard Hopkins.
Wait, hold up. Wilder and Joshua beat the actual champions for the title. What are you talking about? He beat Stavern for his title. Stavern was a reigning champion when he walked into that fight against Wilder, and Wilder beat him. Humiliated him, by the way. AJ was beating fought the reigning champion Charles Martin for the IBF title and blew him out in 2 rounds. What are you talking about, bruh? Are you saying that AJ Wilder winning that title in that fashion is very equivalent to Golovkin being gifted 2 belts? The WBA belt and the WBC belt? What?
Fucking Sugueda. Was he a world champion? No.
No, of course not. But the fact is that Hopkins won that title in the ring against Segundo.
You know, this is not unusual for fucking guys to get their first world championship in a manner similar to this.
Of course not.
So why all of a sudden is it an issue with Golovkin? He's not the only person
It's not.
that won his title in the same way.
Of course not.
Nobody fucking harps on the fact that, you know, these other guys did it in a similar fashion.
Like who?
But they want to discredit Golovkin.
Ken Norton and Lennox Lewis? I've already explained that, but go ahead.
So they have to focus on that as if it means fucking anything.
Really? See, here's what you don't get. What you don't get is, but I'll let you explain.
Title, and he was upgraded to a regular championship in his next fight. And his next fight after he won the title, then your next 10 defenses, he was upgraded to super champion. And by the way, those who treat the regular world title as a legit title, you have to understand one thing, is that the reason why that title is not considered legitimate is because the sanctioning bodies don't recognize it. They don't. The WBO, other sanctioning bodies that historically were even around, that other people didn't even fucking recognize.
Exactly.
WBO, you know, this is an ongoing
Well, guess what? If you're talking about the old rule when we just had one Division One champion, that doesn't exist anymore, brother. You're trying to use the low place angle to defend certain fighters when he's not fighting the other champions. Don't do that. Don't do that. That rule doesn't exist anymore. So get over it. I thought you don't like to talk about histrionomics, a word that you made up.
Scenario in boxing. It's not unusual. Everything is consistently evolving.
I never said it was unusual. First of all, quote where I said this was an unusual circumstances where champions awarded a title. Quote a video, quote a comment where I said that. I never said that. Again, goes back to what I was trying to say here. The whole point of this argument is that you said that Gennady Golovkin's title run is much better than Hopkins, given the fact that, yeah, he's a unified champion. But we have to look into that further. Many people who's going to assess Golovkin's resume is going to look into it and say, okay, who did he beat for that title? And how good of a caliber of fighter that was. If you look at Golovkin's resume, he didn't beat anyone for the super title. He didn't. The WBC title, who did he beat for that title? Nobody. He was awarded the title. Those things will be looked into and taken into account. And you're going to compare that and contrast that to Bernard Hopkins or Marvin Hagler or even Carlos Monzon. Okay, look at Hopkins. Who did he beat for his first title? Segundo Mercado. Vacant fashion, yes, but he fought it in the ring. Who did he unify with after so long? Keith Holmes, who was a WBC champion. Who did he become the undisputed champion? The WBA champion was Felix Trinidad. Those things will be looked into, taken into account. And when people look at that and say, wait a minute, Hopkins actually fought in all his belts. He fought for all his titles in the ring. Golovkin was awarded 2 belts. He was gift wrapped 2 belts. So how can you say that being gift wrapped 2 belts is much better than a fighter who actually fought to get his titles? In fact, fought in certain circumstances where people didn't expect him to win those titles in the ring. How can you say that that's better? If you really say that, then you're being dishonest. That is a dishonest dishonest logic and rationale. Not rationale, a dishonest explanation there. And as I've always said, you are a dishonest fan, bro. You're dishonest. You're tribal. Plain and simple.
And this is just another evolution. Now we have potentially 4 or 5 world champions from a weight. Why? Because of money.
Exactly. Sanction fees.
Good for boxing? No. Any real boxing fan will tell you it'd be much better if we just had one fucking title.
Exactly, but those rules don't exist anymore because of the stranglehold and the power that these sanctioned bodies have.
One champion. You would just be way better for the sport. But that's not the scenario. And there's nothing you can do about it. You just gotta fucking move on and understand where we're at. But the point is, I'm still wanting to know, over the last 2 years, what better fights, what better opportunities, what better options could Golovkin have done besides go to England to fight Chris Eubank,
Yeah.
end up fighting Brooke as a late replacement or as a replacement because Eubank wouldn't sign
Yeah, a welterweight, which you try to give him full credit for taking on. Why you discredit Hopkins and Hagler for fighting welterweights.
contract.
Yeah, but Eubank is still available. He can take that fight right now.
Like Danny Jacobs.
Well, by the way, Eubank is tied up in the WBSS final as a replacement for George Groves, but still, he can try to pursue it. He could have pursued it still. Or better yet,
It was considered the #1 fucking.
I've already explained it, so I don't have to go through it again.
And then fight the super champion, the lineal champion at middleweight, and Canelo Alvarez next.
Super champion. Canelo is not a super champion. He's the ring and lineal champion. What are you talking about?
And then have a rematch with him after that. And potentially fight him next in September. These are huge fights. Top names, elite. Canelo is a pound for pound fucking fighter. A fighter that when Golovkin and Canelo first started to get attached together, people understood that this could potentially mean a trilogy between these two fighters.
Well, I don't see that's happening now.
Most people would consider fucking historical and a great accomplishment for both of them. But for some reason now, we're hearing about the fact that K2 and Loeffler basically have hurt his career
They have.
by chasing the biggest
Yeah, like you mentioned, I'm not the only one who said that. Even your ardent supporters even say it. And you just can't deal with that reality.
in North American boxing. Leave your comments below.
Oh yeah, I know this is a long video. This is a hangout style video, but I gotta address one more thing before I go. You mentioned something about Wilder cashing out. Really? Where's Deontay Wilder made any indications that he was cashing out against Anthony Joshua? I never seen any indications on that. He's never hinted on retirement after the Joshua fight. Golovkin, on the other hand, has referred to that. Let me tell you why. Before getting the Golovkin fight, while he was chasing Golovkin, chasing Canelo, Golovkin has mentioned that he wanted to retire another year or two. He mentioned this back in 2016. He mentioned that in an interview. Okay? That's why he spent so long trying to chase these big money fights, because he knows he's old, he's slowed down, he's getting hit a lot, and he doesn't really have much time left, but the looks of it. Okay? So, like I said, there's nothing wrong for him to cash out, but at the same time, if he's really serious about continuing his career for another few more fights, why is he wasting time with this guy? Seriously. And you want to talk about, I forgot to mention that the IBF and Derevchenko. You have to understand Derevchenko is the IBF mandatory, which I mentioned earlier. He is a mandatory. There's nothing you can do to say about that or change that. So I just hope he fulfills it, and we'll see what goes from there, but it doesn't look like he will. But all I gotta say is, man, is that you're not gonna change anyone's opinion about Gennady Golovkin. And you gotta stop. You really gotta cut out this tribalistic attitude out. All right, and let's be honest. I won this debate a long time ago, and this is something you cannot win. So you gotta give it up, man. But you're not gonna do that. You're gonna still continue to try, and you're gonna still troll out of videos, see who dares to criticize the almighty, great God, Gennady Golovkin, or Vasily Lomachenko, whatnot. But dude, you really got to fix this problem. You got to really fix your tribalistic attitude. Plain and simple. I apologize for the long video, guys, but I really had to get through every single point of this video of his. But I did it in a respectful manner, like I promised you, so I'm out.